to be in the same room, so I might turn off our video cam just to makes it easier for us to position ourselves.
Okay, I think we might also have. Oh, hey, Natalie.
Wave and disappear. Sorry, what were you saying, Marco?
We might also have Jan Keldon join us. He mentioned wanting to come on. I'm not sure who else, but we can just give it a.
I'm still the Open Center.
Yeah, I should update mine as well. Let's see. So,
you ever been there in New York?
What's that?
Ever been to the Open Center in New York?
Many years ago. Isn't it by the Empire State Building?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even remember what it was I went to there, but probably like in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So, how's that going with them?
Pretty good. It ended up kind of translating into hopefully a regular gig. They just want to start doing webinar stuff, and we helped run like a pilot session with like end-of-life nurses. Oh, can you hear me? Is it weird?
Yeah, I can hear you with the headphones on. I don't know. I guess try not using your headphones, and then I can hear everybody from over there. Yeah.
Or do you want me to just hop over there? We'll turn off. One of us will be on, and I'll just turn off my video cam and leave the mic on.
Sure.
Okay, one sec, guys.
Sure.
Okay. We're both here through my microphone. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, let's get started. And if John comes on, that's cool. If not, we can. I think we can just continue. So, just quick check-in. How is everybody doing? I don't think I've said congratulations yet, Natalie, on your engagement. I've said to Jeremy, but not you. Congratulations.
You got engaged to me too, so I guess congratulations to us both.
Yeah, but I talked with him last week, and so we.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Well, you knew. I mean, you kept asking. So you guys are engaged yet already, or like?
I thought you were already. I didn't realize that. You know that you were gonna, that you were going to do a formal.
Yeah, well, my mom and dad didn't do a formal engagement, and I guess my mom always really regretted not actually doing something a little bit more formal. So we decided to do an actual engagement thing. So that was great. It was a really wonderful experience, and it worked out really well, actually. We had already been talking about like the next conversation on the future and family and love and all that stuff, and then we walked out on the beach, and then boom. So it was pretty great. It didn't feel too orchestrated, which was nice. But anyways, yeah, so thank you.
Well, it's very exciting. Yeah, I remember those days when we first got engaged. That was some of the happiest days really of my life. And I still have happy days, but those were really special. Jim, what's up? How are you?
I'm great. I've been tracking along, I think, pretty much here. Haven't been to a gathering for a few weeks, but I'm very excited about your new prospect, as I wrote you hurriedly last night, and I wrote her as well. And to me, it just seems God sent. I mean, it's like, or heaven sent, or whatever your particular metaphor is for something great when it happens. But reading her website was just a treat for me. And not incidentally, I just read one poem, which was the last one that she published, and I was just, I'm not a poetry guy for the most part, but this it just said so much about her that I couldn't have been more enthusiastic, Marco, when I read her resume and saw that picture on her website was so evocative of. I was just like, oh my God, it's like, I mean, if you could have drawn like a little cartoon picture of what you wanted to happen in terms of meeting somebody that could really partner with you guys on this, I thought she doesn't seem like she could be any more perfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, I should fill in Jeremy and Natalie because these are all very recent developments. And I'm going to paste in a link into the chat here if I can get back to Zoom. So, Jeremy, I think we spoke last Tuesday, and that night I was going to a co-op study circle in Colorado. It was the first meeting of this group that's formed amongst people that are working on different kinds of co-ops. And it was formed by a fellow named Nathan Schneider, who founded was one of the co-founders of the Platform Cooperativism Conference, and he teaches at CU and writes, especially on co-ops and new economy and that kind of a thing. But it's being co-led by a woman named Caroline Savery, who I had met the previous week at an event in Boulder at the Impact Hub in Boulder on art and ownership was the theme of the event. And so it was a bunch of people that were involved in co-ops and art-related co-ops. The CEO of Stocksy, the stock photo co-op, was there as well, and she did a presentation. So Caroline was there and was one of the facilitators of the group. We got to talking, and I gave her my card, she gave me hers, and I followed up with her, and we set up a meeting because I told her that we were working on this co-op and we needed help. Caroline is, in addition to being a writer and filmmaker and meditator, Buddhist meditator, she's also a co-op developer. So she does that professionally. She's done that with a number of co-ops. And she has a knowledge of how to create structures, how to build membership campaigns, how to set up the business development, how to do things like set up a steering committee, and basically kind of provide the pieces that we, even though we've been saying that we're starting a co-op for all this time, and I have this whole, big vision in mind, in terms of actually doing the nuts and bolts and getting us on track, I think, towards launching this thing, she has this skills and experience to help, and she happens to be a really cool person. I got to hang out with her last Wednesday, and we had coffee and we walked, and then we kept on talking for a while, and I think she gets what we want to do, and she would be not just able to help us structurally and with co-op stuff, but also contribute to the culture, just like all of us are contributing our creative interests to it. So I just spoke with her before this call, and she is interested in helping us out and getting involved. And we're looking at this window of time between now and the end of the year to really put the pieces together, and for her to work with us on getting this thing launched and getting a business off the ground that can ultimately, I hope, sustain us and help us fill out all the things that we have in mind, from the journal to the podcast to the studio to events and so forth and so on. So that's I think the big piece of news. And what we've discussed just previously was basically the terms of engagement. And, she's never heard of me before or us before. She knows about Reality Sandwich, actually, and she went to the wasn't there a gathering in Pittsburgh a few years ago, 2012, Jeremy? Like an Evolver gathering, something like that.
Sorry?
An Evolver network, maybe?
Yeah, it was probably an Evolver gathering.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was there. She's peripherally, I guess, connected to some of our networks, but she's also really plugged into the co-op and, new economy kind of networks. And basically we talked about terms of engagement. She, this is her profession, so she's not, she needs to be able to make money doing it. But she's also willing to work with us and accept some deferred payment if we can do something up front to, kind of like I paid Carmen, I paid you guys, to at least recognize her involvement. And so we were talking about how we could get that done. I have a little bit of Bitcoin left. When we got through August, I had 2 coin left in reserve. I owed Charles for the podcast, the Jen's Art podcast, which I paid him. I owe myself money out of that, which to reimburse for my payments to Ollie. And I can, I have all the numbers and the accounting. But there's a little bit left, and what I'm thinking is that if we can give her a little bit up front just to recognize her effort, that we could work out then what our plan will be once we launch this and start to build a membership that is paying to fund our work, which I think is, that's what we want to be able to do. That's like our big next step.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where we left it. And then I hopped on this call, and I wasn't necessarily planning to discuss Caroline and her role. But since that was the most immediate thing that's going on, that's what we're talking about.
Cool. That sounds awesome. Oh, that sounds great. Sounds like she's the perfect person we could have asked for to help actually build a cooperative and kind of get somebody who's really experienced directly with what we want to do. So that's great.
Yeah, I would just taking a look around on her website, and you can look at her CV, the lists of different co-ops she's worked for before. I've seen her in person, I've seen her in action a couple of times now, and particularly facilitating rooms of people, and I think she works well with people. Like she has a really good presence. She's really thoughtful, I think I have a good feeling about it. Jim has a good feeling about it as well. I think that there's some, her resume evidence to back it up. So it's worth, in my view, investing what little bit we have left in her in her involvement for a chunk of time, and at least seeing how that goes. Maybe at the end of the year, conditions will change, something else will happen, and we won't continue. But this to me seems like the best next step to get ourselves from the point where we are now, which is we have our journal, we have a podcast, we have a email list, we have a Facebook community. None of those are huge, but they're not tiny either. We've started to grow an audience.
Yeah.
And so now it's, I think, about intensification. It's about taking it to the next level. And seeing what portion of that audience really wants to support us more consistently and get more deeply involved.
Mm.
So
sounds great. I'll check out our website.
Can I insert something?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I spent a lifetime doing for a living, was being able to spot talent for a variety of people that needed to staff their companies. And I would say that I'm probably prone to being a lot more emotional than you, Marco, in certain ways. Because I just sort of let it fly. But if I were to have written a job description and a background list of skills and attributes for the hole, the empty hole that you have in your in your partnership with Jeremy, for example, I was just struck when I saw this woman's website. And I spent about maybe, I don't know, an hour and a half reading as much as I could, but this was like, I told you, I wrote you, Marco, this was like something that it would be a needle in a haystack if you set out just, okay, let's find somebody that has this background. I looked at her from pretty much when she was just in school, and it seems like her life has been just geared to just slip into a puzzle piece into your little puzzle here. That is such a, to me, such a perfect fit. I would be absolutely shocked if she didn't make a huge and meaningful contribution to this effort. She is just, it is incredible. I mean, I didn't even know people like her exist. So, and then I just need to also say this, her poem, did you read her poem, Marco?
I've read a few things there, but I don't know which one specifically you're referring
Well,
to.
yeah. It was the one that had the Nisargadatta quote in it.
Okay, I don't remember it.
Okay, well, at any rate, it was a long poem, but one of the things that I've told you is that at times I felt like the intellectualization of your of you folks that have come together so far, to me sometimes was just a little bit off-putting, and that's just a comment on me, not necessarily on you, but the style, her choice of words, the way that she described herself, what I thought was, it was such a transparent and open and sincere literary piece that she wrote about herself. I was so moved by it, and then when I looked at her background, I thought, my God, I would be screaming at you if you couldn't figure out a way to bring her in, because I'm sure she must see the fit as well, even just after having met you and chatted with you and spent an afternoon with you or an evening or whatever it was.
Mm.
But I am so amazed, and especially in relation to this other person that we had talked about, that I had a problem with, and I was kind of pretty open with you about my problem with the other person, that I thought, oh my God, this is just amazing that this young woman showed up in your life.
Hmm. Okay, so here, this is what I'm thinking of doing. When like I said, we have a little bit of Bitcoin left. It was kind of the last amount that was in reserve. It's probably around between $1,000 and $1,200 left. And I need to make sure we have a little wiggle room. We have a little bit of an account, partly the money that you gave us, Jim, in our bank account, which is paying for hosting and for the various other services. I think that'll last us. I need to actually sit down and update our, do the bookkeeping. I think that'll last us through the end of the year. I think that I could offer her the last set between $750 and $1,000 as a kind of down payment, and a good faith offering basically. Just like I paid Jeremy, I paid Natalie, I paid Carmen, even Ollie. So sort of put her on equal footing with everybody else in terms of getting some down payment, which doesn't reflect the actual value that anybody has contributed, but is symbolic at least, and may help just to kind of lock in the deal. And then beyond that, one of the things that we're going to need to figure out is how it's going to work when we do open up membership, and how are we going to begin to form our staff and form our form our membership itself. I mean, it has to mean something to be a member. It has to mean that you get access to something, or can be involved in something, that you get some value out of it. So I put together this cosmic egg with a bunch of ideas about places that people can get involved in, places where I think that we're offering value, or from which value can unfold when the egg hatches and grows into the grand whatever it's going to be. But I think that I could offer her that. She's already said that she's interested, and I think that would basically make it official. And one of the first things that we would do, that we discussed earlier, is that we would form a steering committee for the co-op, which would be the steering committee that is basically in charge of making the decisions about what the whole thing is going to look like and how it's going to work. And I'm going to be on that. Obviously, a lot of it's going to come out of the ideas I have, but the committee is going to also have other skills and talents, and is going to be able to look at things from more angles than I can, and distribute some of the cognitive load and some of the decision load, from me onto a group that wants to, it's really invested in seeing this happen, and that's, composed of the right mix of individuals. So she counseled that I mentioned that, and that I say that would be basically one of our next steps. And then, she would start working. And we'd follow up with whatever meetings we need to have, whatever decision-making processes we need to have. And I suspect it will work out. And, there's a certain element of formality at this stage in the relationship, where, she is wanting, I think, to preserve her, professional distance in a way, and make sure that it's, just kind of due diligence really on who we are and what we're doing, and make sure it really is gonna work, and we can have clear agreements, and we're not just being ambiguous and not really establishing what our expectations are, which I appreciate. But I hope that once we get into it, we're gonna really get into it and rock stuff out, kind of like we've been doing with the journal and our other efforts. So, yeah, is that any feedback on that?
I think it's a great idea, and she would be the one probably that should be capable of showing you how you're going to monetize this. I would think that her expertise and her experience would really come into play, and it seems like she's had a lot of experience.
You guys there, Jeremy?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're here.
Okay. How does that sound to you?
Creating a steering community, a committee.
Yeah, I mean, basically, paying Carolyn a kind of down payment to start helping us out with, the remaining Bitcoin, and then the steering committees. That's something that she's going to help us put together. So it'd be really just taking the next step with her. You may want to spend some time as well, like just looking at her stuff.
Yeah, but I think in general it's a good idea. I'm taking a quick look at her CV, and she seems very experienced. So I think investing the last little bit of Bitcoin that we've got is on somebody who can really kind of help us get to the next stage is smart, and we should definitely do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think she seems like a really good candidate for doing this sort of thing. Just looking over her website with Jeremy. Seems like a pretty cool person. I'd need to talk to her in person to really get a feel for her. But if you guys feel that strongly about her, then I can't see how it would be a bad decision. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm going to follow up with her then. And then we'll see what our next steps are going to be. I'm sure she's going to want to get to meet everybody and know everybody, and vice versa. And she would like to give it a couple of weeks before she really dives in. She said she needs some time to just think about it, absorb it. But if I make a commitment to her, in the next few days, then by the 17th, she said, she could start helping us out, and then we could really get focused on the fundraising, get focused on the the membership and the steering committee and so forth. So, anything else on that, or should we move on to some further item of business?
I think that's it on our end.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I just had two more items on the agenda for today. One was to look at this cosmic egg structure and give you guys a chance, if you want to take it, to ask questions or to poke holes or to help to clarify what that basically is. I mean, for me, it was sort of a summary or synthesis of a lot of different things that we've talked about over the last year. The other item was more presuming that John would be on board today, and that was about using the forum more, like getting the forum going, getting more people involved in the forum, and particularly John, because this is what he's been doing himself, like in different contexts on Facebook and other places. And we've been talking for the past few weeks about more of the conversation side of things. But why don't we just bring up this egg? And I just want to, like, I was going a little bit crazy. I needed to kind of put everything into one place, and not that it's all final, not that this is everything necessarily, but more or less, these are like the different entities or aspects of the co-op project as a whole that I've been talking about for the last year, and a couple of things, newer things as well, that are more recent, like the book imprint. But I just wanted to make sure it sort of made sense, because most of it is implicit. None of it is really explained in the diagram itself. And part of part of the work that's ahead of me, and maybe ahead of Caroline as well, is to flesh this out in a way and communicate it in a way that people can know what they're getting involved in, if they're going to become members, if they're going to support us, and have real clear paths for people. So I posted it on the forum, and it's not necessarily the prettiest thing. I imagine an artist could really make this look a lot better. But what do you think?
Well, taking a look over it now, I think seeing it kind of laid out like this is helpful. It feels less of a sprawl, and it feels more like a container. But I guess that's what's helpful about kind of diagramming the platform. Is there anything? Let's see. I guess can we break it down a little bit? Maybe. I mean, I know metapsychosis, the forums, and the podcast network, and then the sort of subheadings there. Untimely books, Perpetual Revolution Creative Studio. That's an interesting title. Virtual events, in-person gatherings, experimental retreats. That'd be really fun to explore. So, like, I get all that. I guess let's. Would you want to kind of take us on a tour of this in terms of any like the nuances, the hyperconstitution? That word is new to me.
Yeah. Sure. Well, the egg as a whole is the co-op, right? And I see the co-op as a vehicle supporting a platform, and so that's why just above the block for Cosmos Cooperative is this platform theory of everybody, and the platform supports these other projects. But then the co-op is composed of members, as well as benefactors, investors, friends, partners. I put those on the left side. And then those members are organized into these different kind of entities, which are on the right side. What I call these syndicates, which, as you know, comes from the book The Dispossessed. And the only thing I mean by that, it's probably the most, maybe the flakiest concept here, but it's basically teams of people working together. So none of these are really that formal at this point, but the syndicate of Inception is sort of the editorial executive kind of team. The production is more the podcasting, web design, web development. And the cooperation is what I have in mind is more the kind of thing that Caroline would be doing, is setting up the co-op and the structures and communication and so forth. But what I'm imagining in the long term is that if we have a large membership, let's say there's hundreds, thousands of people involved, and we have a well enough defined set of resources that people can use, or access to resources, access to platform features like the marketplace, or like fundraising through the gift economy, or like promotional features, where if you have set up a project or if you're working on a product and you're a member of the co-op, you get some place in the newsletter or in our social media communications to promote your work. So you get access to our, to the list that we've grown of these, carefully cultivated this audience, that is going to be really a lot more receptive to your particular work. So I imagine that in the long run, members could form their own groups essentially to work on projects. What that would be, I have no idea. I think things like documentaries or things like books or even services for the co-op as a whole, like a syndicate of proofreading or something like that. But that's the placeholder I have in mind for that particular term. And of course, it comes from anarchist theory, and the idea is like a self-organizing groups of individuals. But the meta syndicate, it more would correspond to what in legal terms will be a board of directors, and that will be a body that's voted on by the different membership classes in the co-op. So the ones we have now, the voting classes would be the workers, creative members, and then sustaining members. And the way that those divide up are the workers are people like us who are working on the project day in, day out, editing the journal, doing, the web development, whatever it is. The creative members are a larger group of people that are contributing their work in one way or the other. A podcast, writing, other types of offerings as well. For example, John Davis is working on what he calls clean language, and it's a modality of dialogue. It's a therapeutic modality. That would be the kind of thing that he could offer as a creative member, which would not make him a worker member because he's not doing that full time. That's not his livelihood. But it's something that he could contribute to the co-op as a whole. It's something that he could sell in the marketplace. And so as a member, as a member in this class, he would also have a vote in electing representatives to the board of directors. And then the third class there of voting members are sustaining members. And these are the people that I'm imagining are really just part of a widest community of readers and participants in events. They're like the folks that have showed up to the hangouts that we've done or the book clubs that we've done. And, they're not necessarily contributing creative content in the sense of essays or poetry or whatnot, but they are interested. They care about what we're doing. They want to be part of what we're doing in one way or the other. And the idea is that some group of those, I would hope, 1,000 plus, 1,000 to 10,000, in the long run, would want to be members in a supporting sense or a sustaining sense, and that they would get some benefits from that as well. One, the ownership structure where they have a representative on the meta syndicate on the board. Two, they could have access to things like the Readers Underground. They could start their own book clubs. They could have profile pages. They could also get discounts on marketplace stuff. So whatever services, offerings, or other products are available on the marketplace, a member, as a sustaining member, would get a discount on it, and that would probably pay for the cost of the membership. Pretty quickly if you are, looking for coaching, consulting, design work, co-op development. If Carolyn, for example, wanted to offer that through the marketplace. So what you see at the bottom then are the structure of a membership on the left, and I add in also benefactors, investors, because there are vehicles within the co-op structure to allow for people to become investors and get like stock shares, basically preferred stock, or friends and partners where it's somebody it's an entity, for example, or somebody who has their own business. I imagine somebody like Bonita, for example, could be a partner in some sense, where we are having conversations with each other. We're promoting her work. She's maybe helping us think through philosophical issues in our organization, that kind of a thing. The hyper-constitution I just made up, and that's basically it's really the documentation, or the living what Caroline calls the living documentation. And that's really how the co-op works, what the rules are, how money is distributed. Like, all of that is part of the Constitution, and the Constitution defines the organization, just like the Constitution of a nation defines, the most fundamental rules about that organization. So I guess probably if we look above that line and above the platform, the two pillars I see of our organization economically are the marketplace on the one hand and the gift economy on the other. And I think the marketplace idea is probably relatively clear insofar as, many of us have particular, specific skills to offer. We could leverage this shared platform to offer those to the audience that is forming around the free things that we do, like the journal and the podcasts and the forum. And these are sort of the outer layer of outreach to our widest community, but they also begin to form an audience that presumably is going to be interested in some of the things in the marketplace. That the other side of it is the gift economy, and that is more purely fundraising. The simplest way to describe that is probably that it's like a Patreon. It's like a co-op Patreon, where what's really there is a lot more curated than Patreon. That's the main difference, and where there's a different relationship between the artist or the person that's raising money and the organization. Because on Patreon, you're not a member of Patreon. You're a client of Patreon. Whereas if you are offering something or raising money through the co-op, then you're a member of the co-op. And so you're also kind of benefiting from the wealth of the co-op as a whole. If the co-op does well as a whole, you're also going to benefit from that because you're going to be not only, you're going to participate in the various offerings, but you're also going to be able to raise money. You're also going to be able to sell a service, and you'll also be able to earn a dividend or a return on your Litcoin if the co-op is profitable. So the idea of Litcoin is probably a little bit too deep and technical to really get into too much right now, but the simplest way, maybe just to summarize it, is that it's a way of keeping track of all of our respective contributions. In the absence of a lot of capital and just the conventional structure of paying people salaries or bonuses or that kind of a thing, we will have a system of virtual currency that allows us to pay ourselves and to exchange with each other in a way that as the co-op becomes sustainable and profitable, that currency gains actual value, gains redeemable value, that is to say. And so I can get into details about how I see that working and also the stages along the way, because I ultimately see it as a blockchain application. And there are a couple of different platforms that are working on these kinds of systems, what they call proof of work systems is one way of describing them, where whereas Bitcoin, for example, the proof of work in Bitcoin is your computer solving an algorithm. That's how Bitcoin is mined, or solving a very complex math problem having to do with a cryptological math problem. In these kind of human-centered proof of work systems, well, the value of Litcoin has to come from some recognition of value of work being done or value contributed to the co-op. So an example would be that you're an author and a member, let's say, of the co-op. You've contributed an article to Metapsychosis. Let's say you're Vanessa Fisher and you've contributed an article. Somewhere at the bottom of that article or somewhere in the UI of that page, a member who has Litcoin, all members will get Litcoin to spend, to give, can gift that to Vanessa. And Vanessa then can build up a store of her own coin that becomes worth money, or is worth money, if the co-op is profitable. And just to kind of quickly sort of describe where that value comes from, or where the equivalence comes from. Let's say that this is just a simple math, simple arithmetic. Let's say that our monthly expenses were, $1,000 a month, and that includes investments that we're making, savings that we have, salaries, etc. But we're taking in $2,000 a month from our members. That gives us $1,000 in profit, and that $1,000 can then, or some part of it, can equate to or map to the total amount of Litcoin. So your Litcoin is worth a proportion of that profit, that surplus. That's the basic idea. And then you would have a means to redeem that, to cash out basically on the coin. And so Vanessa could, if she had 100 Litcoin, could cash that out for whatever that's worth in dollars. That's kind of that's the idea. And there are a couple of platforms that are being developed. One of them is called Backfeed, and I posted that on the forum, that kind of manage this. I just don't know enough in detail about how they really work and whether or not they map very directly to this particular scheme. But the general idea is that the proof of work for Vanessa is that people appreciate her writing and express that through this symbolic act of exchanging coin. The proof of work for somebody that's doing proofreading or volunteering in some other way is going to be different, and that's going to be stuff that we figure out. Mm-hmm. But that's sort of what I see as the economic engine, and I don't know whether time will tell whether that really works. I think that what I've seen on Patreon is that a lot of people don't do that very well. Maybe they make, $30-$40 a month. I haven't seen among our network anybody do that well raising money on Patreon. And so I don't know how strong that aspect of it will be, but I imagine that the marketplace aspect can have a stronger it has a stronger chance of succeeding, because we do have people with talents like Jeremy, you doing the facilitation of webinars, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's so if somebody could find you in this marketplace then and hire you, then that would be there'd be some percentage of that goes to the co-op, like a commission, if you will. But then you would have the work. And if we have a suite of offerings, if we have, a dozen or 24 or, 100 different things in the co-op, then in the marketplace, then that could begin to be a source of income as well. And not to mention books and, movies or any other kinds of things that we might produce that would be sellable in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last piece of it that I want to make sure I address is that studio, because I kind of see that as one of the really, really, really key values that we can offer specifically to creative members. And what that looks like right now is a forum space and some meeting structure, like some events that we would do. But I see that as the place, that's kind of like the MFA program. It's like the peer-to-peer MFA program. It's like if you're a writer, a working artist, and you are looking for a community of other professionals or other aspiring writers and artists, then this would be a place where you could get feedback on your work, where you can engage with other people that are really, doing the work with you and able to support you, and where, we could provide some structure of support and some guidance around that. To give an example, let's say somebody like Heather Fester, who is a writing teacher at Naropa, wanted to do something like this. I'm not saying that she does. This is just an example. We'd set up basically like a kind of MFA type of workshop, a sort of ongoing workshop, but it would cost 1,000 times less than getting an MFA. And the best of that work we would curate and we can publish in the journal, or some of it might be more appropriate for the Infinite Conversations FM. But all of it would kind of have a place. It would be work in development. If there's just community type work that doesn't rise to the level of the journal, we could still have a place for it. The important thing is that we're providing a collaborative workspace and a kind of peer-to-peer workspace that gives the value, approximates the value that you would otherwise be paying, tens of thousands of dollars for, but really concentrates it, makes it more, enacts it in this peer-to-peer way, and actually helps people develop as artists, so that we could draw on that and that it becomes a value for them because they could go and do their work. I mean, they can tap into a community of people that are going to support them. So I see that as like one of the really, really key pieces of this. And that's why the forum is important to it, and that's why the events are important to it. And that's why also we want to have these outlets where when people do develop stuff and they have something to give, like John does, for example, or both of the Johns, John Davis and John Keldon, that we have a platform for them to do that, and that we can, of course, make use of that platform as well.
Well, cool. Yeah, that's it makes sense so far. I don't really have any direct feedback yet, except to kind of like basically reiterate and agree that the co-op marketplace probably is going to be where financial sustainability comes from, just through the kind of collective strength of, I guess it's more graspable in the sense of a traditional co-op that, a bunch of professionals coming together to form a cooperative and kind of share in their resiliency. That makes sense. I guess we'll see about the gift economy side of things. I hope that will work. I hope the Patreon kind of thing will be successful. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I like the idea of the creative studio. I think that's great. And it seems like that can even translate again back into the gift economy, back into the Patreon style subscription services. It might evolve into co-op marketplace offerings. If, I don't know, Heather wants to offer individual lessons, for example, or something like that. So I guess I'm saying it all makes kind of sense. These different parts flow into each other pretty understandably. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you've got anything, Jim?
Yeah, a couple things. I think you sent out, I don't know whether it was from you, discourse mail, this scenario, decentralized internet.
Mm-hmm.
Were you going to mention that, or have you discussed that at a different meeting? Or
no, I mean, I posted a few of these platforms that are kind of like cutting edge, distributed kind of computing type platforms where it's like more of the emergent organizations, and people are trying to figure out how to, how to collaborate and how to publish and how to monetize in a way that's disentangled from the more centralized corporate internet, basically. And so I have to look further into it. I posted it there to as a placeholder, but it's something that is there are a couple of different platforms, because there are a few different networks that are forming right now that are in their early stages. Scenario is just now raising money, and apparently they have a lot of technical work done. But part of what they're sort of envisioning is a new kind of social network, and I'm very interested in this. Of course, I wrote this piece after Facebook, which describes my frustrations with current networks. And what I see is that there's a few of these emerging. One is Scenario. One is a platform called Steemit, which is also a sort of blockchain-based social network. Another one is called Akasha. And that one's an interesting one as well, because they're proposing a distributed social network that's open source. So presumably you could plug into their thing, but you could also create your own network using their software, and there'd be some interoperability between them. There are some efforts I've seen to create systems of common identity that would allow you to move between different networks. So whereas now you have your Facebook ID and your Twitter ID and Google and so forth, but you can't move between them. In these other systems of a kind of common or distributed common identity, you would have a blockchain verified identity. It would let you log into different networks. So I don't, I'm not technical enough to understand how they work. I'm more interested in the bigger picture of how they could fit together and how we might be able to sort of ride the waves that are coming, and anticipate the ones that are going to be, have the best chance, I guess, of taking off. And also, I'm looking at values that are embedded in these networks. Like, I want to know, is it open source? What's the governance like? What's the culture like? Do we really align with it? Because, I don't feel very aligned with, say, Facebook or Twitter, and they're where everybody is right now. So we have to have an interface with them, and even I need to figure out how to better interface with our networks there. But because what we're doing is more cutting edge, I guess. Maybe that's, I don't know if that's fair, but more experimental at least. Let's say that. We're probably going to align better with this next wave. And, I think that insofar as we can develop a culture that's really maybe that really fills in the interiors, and the consciousness that is going to correlate, with these new ways of these new currencies and these new ways of managing our social lives. I think that that's going to be the way for us to go. So basically, they're there in the forum, but they're for further research.
Thanks.
All right, well, we're at the top of the hour, and I hope that was a useful call. Do we want to check out and offer any final thoughts or reflections before we move on?
Yeah, I would. So Carolyn, or is it Caroline? Is that what she is, or Carolyn?
I think Caroline, but I don't know.
Okay, whatever. Is she? You mentioned something about a possible meet and greet. Is that still potential?
Yeah. Let me. I'm going to email her after this call and let her know that we talked and that I want to commit to her, and one of the next steps I think should be to meet folks.
And have you shown her the cosmic egg?
Yes.
So I'm very interested in knowing about what her inputs are, and if she's had experience with maybe new ways to monetize things, and even within the whole general rubric of co-op, you have an awful lot of material in here, and so I'd love to have a meeting where I could just be a spectator really and watch her kind of either pick at this or comment on the different categories, and maybe ways that she's thought about monetization, what she thinks about the Litcoin approach, if she's used anything like that in the past, etc. I imagine you in your personal conversations with her have talked about some of these things.
We started talking about Litcoin, and we both agreed that it would be too deep of a rabbit hole to get into quite yet.
Okay.
So she indicated that she did have some thoughts on the subject of cryptocurrencies, but it seemed like the thoughts were too deep and numerous to explicate right in the moment.
Because in a way, I would see her as a very important architect that you're bringing in here to look at this kind of overall wish list, and then begin to, one of the things that an architect hopefully has the skill to do is understand enough about engineering or something, to know whether a building, is going to actually be something that could stand somehow. And, these are your dreams. I understand that, but I would be expecting that she could really poke at a lot of these things and really bring, talk about it and talk about the merits of one idea versus another idea.
I hope so as well. And to just play with the metaphor of the egg, what I would say is that this egg is a visionary egg. It represents and contains my particular vision for how I see this thing being. But when the egg cracks and opens up, and when the egg hatches and the cosmic hen comes out of it, it may take a very different shape than what it looks like inside the egg. And so I'm happy just to lay the egg, but it's going to take it's going to take others to help hatch it and then to nurture it to its for full growth and maturation. And
Marco, the mother hen.
I don't want to scramble the metaphor too badly. But yeah, I very much welcome picking at it. I think probably picking at it and picking it apart is going to be part of how it hatches.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I would also be very interested in Carolyn sort of picking at this, or should I say pecking at this a little bit. And yeah, that'd be really cool. If she get on board, I would love to just, again, be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, and you don't have to be flies on the wall. You could pick too. That's why I put it in the forum for conversation.
I just would like to comment about Jeremy. Did you see the picture on the front of her website?
Yeah.
That to me was amazing. I just thought her picture was amazing. I mean, it just said it all about her. I think if she's good enough to create a picture like that, I would love to see her do a picture of the cosmic egg, because I mean, it stated so much about her and her background. I was extremely impressed with her artwork.
Great. I mean, if she's sort of an architect of cooperatives, I would love to hear kind of how she takes this initial graphic and sort of, I don't know, re-engineers it, or whatever she finds to be the most efficient. I'd be really curious. So yeah, I'd definitely love to get involved in those conversations and see what she has in mind.
That was a very cosmic meeting for you to run into her, Marco. I think.
I agree. But I mean, I went out. I went to this event, and if I was going to meet her anywhere, it would have been there. And so, whoever set that up, that's why they set it up, so people like us could meet. So
fabulous.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's. Why don't we adjourn this meeting? I did record this. Is it okay? I want to make sure it's okay with you guys if I post this in the forum.
Yes.
Okay. In case this for future members or whoever might want to see. Yeah.
I just have one question, and I don't know, maybe you already have this and I just missed it, but is there any way, I think you'd get more attendance if there would be some way to push, is there any kind of push technique that you can use to inform your members of meetings such as this? Because I imagine fortunately, I don't just hang out on the site or anything. And I happened to take a look last night, and I saw that there was a meeting today, and I was really happy to see that. But if I had looked this afternoon instead of last night, then I wouldn't have known about it. And I'm thinking that it would be nice to have more attendance. And I think if you could push this out somehow, it would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to do that?
We have an email list, and it's come from various places. Some of them metapsychosis, some from Geeks Reads. We have over 500 people on the list right now. So I haven't yet emailed the list with information about this meeting, but I've kind of been waiting to see how they went, and just starting with the smaller group, more personally invited, or people that have been on the forum. I think probably what's going to evolve, we need to, part of the idea of a co-op is that the ideas are coming, they're discussed, that they're coming out of the community. It's not to flatten it, we still need to have decision making, we still need to have some executive function, but there should be a conversation, with the people who are going to be members and supporters and workers. So I want to defer to how Caroline would really see this happening. My thought was that it's important to have a regular type of meeting. And if this were a local food co-op, for example, I imagine that they would do some kind of regular informational meeting for potential members, where they develop more of a format and they would talk about what the co-op is and how to get involved and answer questions and so forth. I would see it sort of developing into that. And then from what Carolyn has shared with me so far, we would have a steering committee that is really intentionally chosen to reflect a kind of set of skills that we want to bring together and a set of perspectives to really focus on the nuts and bolts of what the structure is, what the marketing plan is, what the business plan is, etc. And that steering committee would probably have its own meetings, and of course be in communication through the forum and through emails and through posting videos of their meetings if we want to be transparent about it with the larger community, so that there's actual inclusion. But it would still be, hold the responsibility to make those decisions and to move the ball forward.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Good.
So I'm going to keep doing these 1:00 meetings every Tuesday. And for me, a personal next step for me is I want to reach out to my own network. Like, I need to find a way to communicate with people that doesn't involve me being on Facebook a lot, because I'm kind of in a jam, and I'll just say this quickly. I feel like the time I put there really depletes me, and it kind of incurs this karma where I have to keep going back. And I get deeper and deeper involved in conversations that don't actually ultimately, I think, or at least directly, lead to things I want to create. But I need to still communicate with people, and that's the place to do it. So what I'm starting to figure out how to do is I want to do my own newsletter that is just my perspective coming from me, stuff I'm working on. A big part of which would be the co-op and the journal, but it can include other stuff that's not directly related. But I have a whole bunch of people in my own list that I can email, and I want to put this out to them and tell the story of like what I've been working on this past year, like a big personal update that just lets people know what I've been doing, but also gives them some opportunities if they are interested to get involved or to join a different list and to follow up on these other channels like the journal or the co-op. So I'm thinking that if I do that, and I do that as like a weekly or monthly thing, then I could just post that once a week or once a month to Facebook and kind of take care of that and not have to, and then I can still like log on and follow what other people are talking about occasionally, like as I have time, but without getting into the karmic cycle of, posting and reacting and responding, which I just don't have the bandwidth for. I mean, even if I would like to do it, actually, on some level, like I enjoy it, but when I do it, I end up depleting myself, and and I can't get my more essential work done. So I'm trying to kind of figure out another way to stay in touch with people, because I feel like I'm not doing a good job really of just communicating what I'm doing and, like playing my part in the promotion of all this. I just can't do it in the conventional way. I have to figure out a different way to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else from you guys, Jeremy, Natalie?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good. Just like a quick note on that. I mean, I could always help with the Facebook promotion. Like, we have a little MetaSci group for the editors. I don't know, maybe I'm not really sure if we want to add more groups on Facebook. I don't know if that's the solution or not, but we can talk about it just in terms of promotion.
Yeah, I think let's bring that in, and I think Caroline she mentioned that she has some thoughts on that. This is more me personally. I'm just feeling disconnected because I'm deliberately avoiding Facebook, and I'm feeling disconnected, but I don't know exactly how. Well, I have an idea, like this newsletter idea, but yeah, I mean, I know that I know that you post everything from metapsychosis onto Facebook. The thing is, with pages, people don't see them as much. Like unless we're buying posts, maybe 5-10% of the audience that likes the metapsychosis page is actually going to see the post. So our personal networks, I think, are really important.
Definitely.
And yeah, like I need to find a different way. I need to circumvent the social media without totally disengaging. So I think the newsletter might be one way to do that. And I started working on one, and I think I could make it fun and interesting.
Marco, just one more question. I get bits and pieces, and I read things, and I get excited about it, and I have people, people, and they have people, that I want them to know what's going on over here. And the best that I've been able to come up with is I just send them to. I just say, well, take a look at Infinite Conversations, or take a look at Metasci, and see what you think. But it would be nice if there was like I did for a while. I used your video, your Inception video, as kind of the intro that I would send people. Take a look at this and tell me what you think about it, because I'm pretty excited about what's going on here, but it's interesting. It's difficult to get people to see. This is kind of an evolutionary process. So maybe it's a little premature to even be asking this question, but it would be nice if there was something that was like a little intro piece for people that had no idea what anybody's been up to and the history of this and everything. And I don't expect everybody to spend the amount of time that I spend sometimes just probing into something, but it would be nice to have just one go-to place, like an introductory experience that would summarize this for a person that had no idea that anything existed in this neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what that looks like exactly.
I don't know what it looks like either, but we'll just put it on the bulletin board.
Yeah, no, but I see the need for sure. And if we do a membership campaign, we're going to need to have something like this. Maybe
for sure,
like a 2-minute video or some animation that introduces what it is, some kind of overview. Yeah.
Well, I think your Inception video is kind of close to that. It's at least it's in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm. For metapsychosis, for sure, but I think that for the co-op as a whole, because if we're talking about membership and we're talking about this monetization aspect and the gift economy and marketplace, we're going to need something that orients people to that as well.
Caroline, let's. That's the code word.
Caroline Savery, save us, Caroline.
Right. I like her last name.
All right. Well, that sounds good. Let's just note that. I hope Caroline will watch this. Maybe it could be a good introduction to some of what we're talking about.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, and we'll take the next step. I think the next few days I'll be able to follow up with their next meeting or some other concrete development.
Great.
So appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you, and
likewise, Marco.
Congratulations, Jeremy and Natalie, on your engagement.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Happy for you. Take care, you guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.